Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and we have finally gotten another dev feedback for May of 2024 from the CoD team. It's been a minute since the April update, and we haven't really heard any kind of official news on anything as of late, so this is kind of a nice warm welcome. We're going to read through this and see potentially how spicy, how intriguing, or maybe how bland it's going to be. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw those up, because it helps out a lot. So let's see. First one, it almost feels like they trimmed this, like they formatted it differently. It's not like an incredibly long question, but it's kind of a little bit more direct and to the point. Number one, stop resetting heroes every season. The dev response: we appreciate your feedback and your concerns. The seasonal reset feature was originally designed with the intention to ensure all players farming at the same level when a new season starts. That is a little interesting because I feel like it doesn't really matter if they're all at the same level. Because when you're resetting, you are resetting it to the same level. That is true. But over time, everyone's going to max EXP level out their heroes. And that's typically the easiest thing to do in Kingdom Builders. The second most challenging thing is then to star them out, which would be their stars that then unlocks more skills. And then the most challenging thing to do to upgrade heroes is their skills. That usually is what takes the most time. Okay. However, it has come to our attention that the majority are showing. I just don't know if that is like the most well-explained answer to why. Yeah. You let me know if you agree with that or not, or your thoughts. It has come to our attention that the majority are showing signs of fatigue and discouragement towards this feature. Thus, we are aiming to remove the seasonal hero resets in the upcoming update. Stay tuned for our next patch notes. They're removing it. Interesting. They are getting rid of seasonal resets. This is big. This is massive. Because this has been a core element of Call of Dragons gameplay since day one. And we've seen the trend where in the beginning, right, for the first few seasons, people were more or less okay with it. And then you started getting people saying, hey, can we tailor this back a bit? And then they ended up doing that and giving it to where they cut the EXP levels in half. And instead of resetting you from 60 to 1, it was 60 to 30. And again, that's obviously if you had your hero at level 30 or higher, then it reset back halfway. But now they're saying we're just going to get rid of it. Personally, I am somewhat okay with this. I can see it from both sides. On one side, I like the resets because it requires, for example, all players, but really more so the people that spend, to put some work in on the grind. And it is a grind element. But it also requires for all players essentially to show activity and to be, I guess, more in the moment, right? More engaged on that front by doing more of these actions, which kind of gives everyone this sense of equality in that everyone has to do that. Everyone has to re-level their heroes back up, right? But then on the other side of it is, I do also feel that removing this reset is a little bit more free-to-play friendly. And I say that merely because there's a cap, right? The cap is, level 60. And once you get there, then there's nothing else to do, at least level-wise. And so, as a free-to-play, you being able to get your heroes to 60 is something that you can attain just like spenders can, even if it does take you a little bit longer. The fact is that once you get there, you don't have to do anything more than that. And then you get to work on other areas and parts of your account's progression. Now, the same thing can be said, obviously, for those that spend, except they'll just get there a little bit faster. But I do think overall that as a free-to-play, it eventually will become one less thing to do, as it will be in general. But it still feels as though this is a little bit more favored because when resets happen every season, especially when they were happening at level 1, you were required, really, and everyone was, but for free-to-play, you were required to grind that much more. So the likelihood of you having a level 60 hero going into a fighting zone, whether that's zone 2, zone 3, or final, now will actually be attainable because you'll be able to have your heroes at 60 before the fighting starts. And so I actually just think overall this should actually help a little bit more of the PvP combat and the sustainability, or maybe even the early engagement and then some of the early sustainability, because everyone will be able to now have their heroes at 60. So I am actually okay with the change, right? Even if it's only a little bit thus far. I still think they could have done some other things to kind of fine tune and maybe tinker the resets out. But I am okay with this, just for some of the reasons I mentioned. Now, again, I'd love to hear from you, right? Are you okay with them doing this? Do you think it makes sense? Do you agree or disagree with some of the points I made? Or do you have other views? And if so, please share. I'd love to hear those. Number 2, keep melee units' ability to intercept. Interesting. Okay, so thank you for your suggestion. We also received numerous feedback from other melee unit lovers in regards to this update. In light of this, our team treats this update as an important test towards the battle mechanisms in CoD as well as melee units. Thus, there would be no immediate consideration in keeping the intercept feature as we aim for consistent feedbacks from more players with the new update. Okay, who is writing their dev responses? Have they just upgraded their thought process and how they are framing their responses now? Why do I say this? Because if you recall, in many dev feedbacks and Q&As, they have been very cut and dry, is a very professional way of saying it, to where it's been short, it's been a little curt here and there, and there hasn't been much explanation, at least consistent explanation. We should be specific there. But already, in the first 2 dev responses, we're getting some logic, some explanation, some reasoning from their perspective, and I at least for one appreciate that. So, this is actually nice because I like how they tell you why they're looking to do it. The fact that they're not just it's giving you a hard no, right? It's kind of like a soft no for now. And saying that we're going to keep monitoring, which leaves the door open for a potential change in the future. But again, I just like the fact that they gave us a little bit more here and are sticking to their guns, but also, again, not closing the door. Number 3, please make the first cross-server migration free. Dev response: thank you for your suggestion. We understand your concern that migrating to a new server might be overly expensive and time-consuming. While there is no immediate consideration in making migrations free for the first time, we are working towards setting a reasonable migration permit requirement based on the player's power. So, I mean, again, that doesn't really tell us anything, just being honest. However, I guess our hope is that the migrations for the tickets themselves will not be, or the permits, will not be as maybe extreme. I don't know if I want to say extreme, but maybe let's just say a little bit more favorable than Rock's migration scroll system. However, it does feel as though, at least going in, it could be exactly that, right? Because obviously the power thresholds are pretty similar from Rock to IK, even if there are some small differences. And that's not me saying it's an exact 1-to-1 ratio. But if you look at how their migration scroll or system is, and I think we have, let me see if I have a thing here. I can't remember where I was last on. Let's go to my data dump channel, and I'm curious if I posted it there or not. I cannot remember. I didn't. Here, we'll do this. Let's go to, I wonder if I could find it here real quick. So let's go, what is it? Rock migration. Let's see if there's an image someone posted. If not, we'll just continue. I'm totally just curious right now. Here, we'll do it like this. Rock migration cost, and then we'll show this to you real quick. So here's an example. I think this is the one too that we have. So this is what we'll do. I just copied it. We're just going to post it here on my data dump, and I'm just going to say migration permit cost reference, not exactly what it will be from Rock, and we'll just do something like that. But this is what it looks like, though, right? So you can see now. However, the thing we know, and this is why I think that these numbers actually may be cut in half. This is my take on it, is because they've already came out and said that 5 million power and less will be one migration permit. So if it's all in half, or maybe close to half, then that means that 1 will equal 5 mil, right? And then, which the challenge here is that if it's cut in half, you're hoping that the passport permits will be cut in half, because technically one passport for being 10 mil and less is actually more favorable than being 5 mil and less to cost one passport, right? Because that now means that the thresholds are becoming higher as you have to reach higher permit requirements. So hopefully this is something where it's like 50 mil is 37, right? Or 40 passports, something like that, right? Where if the numbers are cut in half, hopefully the permit requirements are cut in half, or the thresholds are a little bit lower. Now, who knows? We'll obviously have to wait and see. Okay, moving on. Add more alliance markers. Dev response. Thank you for your input. We understand that there's a sign of shortage in alliance markers in the game. We have taken note of the suggestion and for consideration of future updates. Okay. It's not a no. It's a maybe we'll work on it, etc. I mean, this makes sense. I do think that they should add more alliance markers. I do not recall what the limit is off the top of my head, if it's 10 or something around there. And again, I'm probably totally off there. But I am definitely in favor of this because, and I think it'd be nice if you could almost customize alliance markers a little bit more too as well, where maybe they gave you a number of different symbols. Maybe you could customize the symbols that you use, or they just gave you more options for potential symbols, right? Maybe even like some words that you could use as markers, right? Where it's stop, hold here, gather here, something like that, right? Or even just symbols that maybe indicated that. And then you could use those when you're assigning markers in addition just to having a few more. So I actually think that this is a good idea. Let's go to number 5. There should be a new war pet specializing in gathering talents for faster gathering speed. Thank you for your suggestions towards our war pet system. While there are no immediate plans for adding a new gathering war pet, we will keep this suggestion in mind for future consideration. However, we are pleased to announce a new hero specializing in gathering in future patches to further enhance your in-game experience when gathering. That's great, because right now there is one legendary gathering hero, right? I'm not totally off my rocker on that one. And then it's Pan, and then it's the 3, and it's Kella, Chakcha, Ordo, and I think it's Indus, right? I have to, dear God, my memory. It's not there because she's the flying. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Indus, the one you were able to get from the Dragon Trail shop. So you have one legendary gatherer. I mean, ideally, it'd be nice to be able to have 5, right? And even have 5. This is my thing. Why not be able to have 5 gatherers that are legendaries, and then eventually you could have, and you could argue on this as well, right? It's like, does it matter if you have? Does it even matter, right? To a point. Well, so like my thing is like, if you want to gather, I think it'd be great to have at least 10 gathering heroes, right? Because you want to be able to do the same thing that you can do on the PvP side as you can on the PvE, right, or non-combat side, which is to be able to have 2 same type heroes, or at least similar, right? Same, even if it's one attribute, right, for each of them, but same type, right? So I could do 2 calves per march, which would be me needing 10 calves, right, to do up to 5 marches. So the same thing I think they need to be able to do on the gathering side. Now, whether you say they need to have 10 gathering legendaries or a mix of legendary, epic, and elite gatherers, again, you can probably make an argument for both sides. Now, for one, would I like to see them add a few more legendaries and a few more epic gatherers? 100%. But as far as what is the right way to do that, right? Is it they just need to have 10 legendary gatherers? Do they just need to do 5, and then they just do a mix? Maybe they'll add 1 more epic in there, so there will be 2 epics, 3 elites, and then 5 legendaries, and you could still do your 2 pairs each, up to 10 for your up to 5 marches. Let me know what you guys think. I'm curious on what you feel, on how you would like to see them do something like that, right? For what does that hero gatherer ratio look like at each tier level? Number 6. Allow players to customize who to prioritize when healing injured troops in hospitals. I think that's a great idea. Thank you for your suggestion. We understand that hospital is a crucial feature of CoD along with its healing features. Our team is currently working towards optimizing the healing experience and applying them to future updates. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so that's nice. That's actually something that's going to be coming, or potentially coming, based on how this is worded. And yeah, I think that's nice to be able to kind of preset who you want to focus on healing first and foremost, or even give an order like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This is what my order is based on who's there. That's great. Number 7, add more healing items to daily, weekly merit store. This is somewhat iffy, I think. Thank you for your suggestion. While there are no immediate adjustments made to adding more healing items in Merit Store, we will keep your suggestion in mind for future consideration, optimizing your in-game experience. I mean, this is more or less right. I mean, isn't the max healing right now, it's like 3 million, or 2 million free and 3 mil RSS, so it's 5 mil total, I think, from when I last checked the hospital maxes. So, I mean, let's just say you're around 5 mil that you can heal per day based on free and RSS. I mean, that's a lot, right, already. And so I guess the challenge with something like this is I'd be curious to see what that data looks like from those that are requesting to have more healing items in the daily and weekly Merit Store. I mean, first and foremost, right, it's not like no one is asking for it. Let's be clear there. I'm sure there are people asking for it. But I'm curious on how many of those people are asking for it, right, versus how much healing they're able to do, comparing to the people that are not asking for it based on the amount of healing they're able to do, right, to kind of see like what the difference is there. Because for how I look at it is that, I mean, a part of how your healing scales is also a factor of how many troops you have in the hospital. So the idea being is that everyone eventually is going to, I mean, everyone is constantly training troops, right? So eventually more players are going to get to a point where instead of KVK wars in Final Zone or in any meaningful zone lasting a couple days, they're eventually going to last a week. And then it'll be 2 weeks, right? Because more troops are being trained over a period of time, which is really the biggest factor. And then, obviously, what the spending capacities are for players, right? For those that spend, how much are they going to spend in order to either keep training or to keep healing, right? From RSS, etc., in order to keep sustaining longer fights. But I don't know. I just wish they maybe gave a little bit more of an explanation here. Not to say that I'm against this or for it, but I just wish they gave a little bit more of an explanation. And again, for those of you that are advocating for adding it, I would love to hear what is your reasoning, right? Why do you want more healing items to be added in the daily, weekly Merit Store? How is that something that would help out all the players in the game as well, right? I'd love to hear that. Buff Wilderburg flying units. Thank you for the suggestion. We are aware that the current imbalance of flying units between different factions in CoD. We have taken the suggestion and have considered making adjustments to the Wyvern Riders. More details will be displayed in future updates. Okay, so it looks like they are going to aim to do that. And this is the interesting thing about units, right? Is that it's funny because I think about this sometimes where it's like the easiest thing to do is just to make all the stats the same, right? And obviously you make them the same per that unit type. And then you can always do things where you have different effect differences, right? So like the stats are the same, but you do different effect differences, compared to how they have it now, where the unit types have more or less the same effect differences with some unique differences that they have as well per faction and then per type, but the stats are slightly different, right, for each one. So it's always interesting on like how you tinker that. But yeah, if it's something, again, how often do I see Wyvern Riders out in the field compared to Celestials as an example? Probably not that often. And again, even if you look at the factions, right, in large part, you're seeing a lot of more like Wilderburg and Spring Wardens out there, like when we did our last like top 100 or top 200 players, depending on the factions they're using. I think Spring Warden, from what I remember, I think Spring Warden was 1, League of Order was 2, and then 3 was Wilderburg. And so maybe I'll do another one on those and see how that meta is potentially shifting. But I also think that can be pretty indicative, especially when it comes to, right, if you have one faction or that's being used more than the other, right, that also limits that unit representation out on the field. Let me see. Allow players to select the skills they want to keep when releasing pets. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. There are no immediate adjustments planned at this time, but we will keep the suggestion to our attention for future considerations. I mean, I think, again, even though, I always tell this for people, right, I still have not messed around with any pets. Being able to select the skills they want to keep when releasing, honestly, it doesn't sound bad to me. Like, it just sounds as though they're getting a little bit more control, and it's not as random. But again, because I am not using pets, I'd love to hear from people that are using them on, is it, I guess what you have to compare is it such a big hurdle that because of the randomness of which ones you get, it's not allowing for you in a reasonable amount of time to skill level up or to skill level up skills and then get to a point where, you are advancing them, whether it be to 3-star or getting them to where you need to get them, because the randomness is maybe too RNG, and it's therefore taking you something that maybe you could do for one skill in a month, where maybe it takes a year, right? So it'd be nice to kind of hear that kind of an explanation and maybe some data there. But I'd love to hear from anyone that is 100% or just for this and why, right? So let us know in the comments. Number 10, I can't see markers when I'm playing the game zoomed out. Dev response, thank you for your suggestion. We acknowledge your concern and the value of the suggestion. We will assess its potential for improvements in future updates, aiming to increase an in-game experience while zoomed out. And this is something I'm actually for, right? If you're in the Alliance, being able to zoom out. Well, first off, I am a little off on this because technically you can see markers when you're zoomed out. So I'm confused on what exactly they mean by this, because I see. Maybe it's, I'm trying to think here real quick. Maybe it's when they're lightly zoomed out, because when I'm in game, let me see here real quick, right? Because I'm in an Alliance. So in my Alliance, I don't understand because I see a marker. So here, let me give you an example, right? Maybe I'm slightly confused on exactly what they mean here, but let's do this. Because if I'm in game, right, and I'll just show you one. Okay, so like here, right, here's a marker. So I don't get it, because like if I'm zoomed out, I see this marker all the time. If I go all the way, now maybe they mean a different marker, right? But if I zoom out the entire way, then okay, right? Like there's something there. So I guess I'm a little, again, maybe I'm just not hearing exactly what they mean. Maybe someone's going to respond and be like, boss, this is exactly what they meant. Then okay. Maybe I'm just having a brain fart moment because it is early in the morning for me. But yeah, so someone might need to explain that one, just in the event that I'm not in the right state of mind to understand this question. Maybe it's personal markers, maybe, or some other type of marker. With that in mind, that I think is going to do it for us this time. This is pretty insane of a dev feedback, and I say that just because of how much there is in it. Now, again, I do like the new format. I like how it's more just straight, hey, here's what the question is, and here's what our response is. And in most cases, it does feel like in a number of the responses, their feedbacks the dev feedback responses have actually improved a bit, with just being a little bit more well-rounded, I would say. But this is probably the biggest one, without a doubt, which is the fact that resets. And I think this is going to be the one that it feels as though most people will be probably winning, or probably will just say, hey, this is a W update, a change that's coming up, and there's a good chance that this, who knows if this will come in the mid-June update or later. But I do think that this has some more pros than cons. The only thing that I would say is I don't know if I want to say a heavy con, but the one con that I'm, again, just on the fence about, is that it does also take away from a core gameplay aspect that the game has been doing since the beginning. However, in me saying that, like I said, I still feel that this is a little bit more of a win, right? Even if I'm leaning a little bit more on that side than for example, keeping the seasonal resets in. My only thing is, was this the only next step to go from here, right? Or could you have done something else that could have allowed for players to level up heroes more quickly in other ways? And I'll give you one example here before I end it out, right? In Rise of Kingdoms, they have certain heroes that allow for you to increase the EXP gained when fighting like barbarians, right? So someone like a Lohar or an Ethelfled in Rock have a skill that boosts the EXP gain of the secondary hero when going out and fighting PvE units. And so that's my point in saying that. And even though they do not do seasonal resets, my point is that it's a unique and creative way to allow for more heroes to gain EXP faster, where you still can, where then you're able to use them that much sooner, right? Because you'll have more of them that you're able to get to max EXP level. But again, I digress. I still am a little bit more leaning as an advocate for this, and I still think the change will be good overall, more so than I think it's going to do any kind of, massive harm. But again, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch y'all later.